Well, good evening. And I think we are live and starting the show on time again. So that's great. Yeah, we're getting this down where we can get on time for a change. So I'm happy. If y'all are happy, we're all happy. So missed you a lot of you guys last weekend. I know I said I wasn't going to do a show, and then I run into Russ, and he told me if we didn't going to do a show at the Atlanta, he was going to beat my butt. So I caved in and did a show. So you can blame it on Russ. He forced me to do it at the last minute. So no, I'm just kidding. But no, what it was is we weren't going to do the show, and then we tried to go over to where everybody else was with Dave and Buster's, and the parking was just so bad. Russ told me, he said he couldn't even find a parking lot. So my wife, she really didn't care about going, so that big of a deal to her. So we stayed at the motel, and then Chris Cute, he decided he was going to pull out his computer and go on the Maritime show, which is the show right after ours. And so I said, well, by God, if he's going to do it, I'm going to do it. So the laptop came, and we were out on the patio behind the motel and did the show. If y'all seen it from last week, so it was not a lot of time to tell anybody, but we had Chris was there. I think there was a couple of people on there. It was good. We had a good time. So that being said, I thank you all for being here tonight. Thank all y'all on the panel. Got a few things to say real quick. For number one, everybody knows Chad's back this week, and we're going to talk about planes. He's the Lean Mean Dancing Machine is back tonight. So that's what my new name for him is, the Lean Mean Dancing Machine. And then if y'all saw my update of all the stickers, got a bunch of brand new stickers on here, which is great. It's like I almost filled this entire board with stickers. I've got very few places left, so I'm going to end up having to make another board and somehow put it over here behind me so y'all can all see it. So that'll be great. The only one, everybody I mentioned in the video, or you saw it in the video, the one new that just came in, matter of fact, I got it in the mail this morning and stuck it on my board is, if you can see it down over here, is Pete's. It's Pete's Wonderful Works of Wood, or Pete's Wood Creations is what the sticker said. But so I got a sticker from him and put it on there today for the show tonight. So, and the next thing I want to say is I'm getting with my sponsor, Frank. He is over there at Devobal Technologies. Devobal Technologies is my new sponsor. They did my website for me, and I am very, very happy and very, very excited about my website. And I touched the screen, and wouldn't you know, because it's a touch screen, it changed off, and I can't even see myself. But I'm very excited about my website, and so the giveaway for somebody out there to have a brand new website. If you don't have a website, they will design and make you a website. They're into the design, development, and also hosting of websites. And if you do have a website, then they'll give your website a makeover like they did mine. So really great guys to work with. They have been fantastic. I love my website. It's great. So if you get a chance, go over and see them at devobal.com, and that's spelled DEVOBAL.com. Devobal. They're my brand new sponsor. So with that being said, I guess we're going to go right to the man with the plan, the mean, lean dancing machine, Chad.
Hello, everyone. How are you guys tonight?
Good. You know, I forgot to do one thing though, Chad. Let me do this real quick. I'm so excited and everything tonight, and I'm back from Atlanta. I had such a good time. I forgot to let everybody introduce themselves. So let everybody introduce themselves.
Oh, absolutely. I was hoping you were doing that.
Well, I forgot. You know, when you get the old timers disease, that just happens. So we'll go down the row. We're going to go from right to left. And tonight, the first one on the list is Russ. Go ahead, Russ.
Copy that. Russ Meadows here, folks. You can find me on Facebook under that name, and also on my Facebook page, Rusty Nails with a Z, Woodshop.
Great. And then right after him is Mr. Patrick.
Hey guys, I'm Patrick from Patty's Workshop. You can find me on YouTube and social media under that same name, so come check it out.
Good. Then is Mr. John Schaffner.
Hi, John Schaffner here. You can find me on Facebook under my name.
And then Mr. Donald Matthews.
Okay, I'm Donald Matthews. My YouTube channel is Donald Vlogifies Woodshop. My website is rednecknohow.com, and all my Twitter and Instagram and Facebook page links is on my YouTube channel.
Great. Next is David Gunn.
Hi, I'm David with DLG Woodwork. You can find me on YouTube, DLG Woodwork. Just find me there. I've got a website, but I'm a lot more active there. All my social medias you can find, and I'm just here hoping that we're going to get some good dancing tips from Chad.
I hope we get more than dancing tips. I hope we get some planing. Learn how to do some planes here tonight. So, and then next on my list is Dave Gatton.
Thank you, Russ. You can find me under Dave Gatton on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter and Instagram.
And then Mr. Chris Ahern.
Hey everybody, Chris Ahern here. You can find me on Facebook at the Old Cranky Workshop or on YouTube at Chris the Wheeler. If I'm not there, you'll find me at the local club.
And now we're back to the man of the hour, Chad. And you're muted, Chad.
Oh, okay. There we go. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
No, this is a topic I'm really excited about. I mean, it's a hobby of mine on top of being something I have to use on my job, which is hand planes. And I know a lot of folks out there that don't use hand planes. I always hear the same thing over and over again, that they can't make it work for them. You know, oh, those never work for me. So hopefully tonight we're going to go over some basics and tell you some of the essential hand planes that you need, and hopefully get your guys' courage up to either use the one that you have or go out and buy one. And we'll talk about that too, as far as what to look for when you buy one, a new one versus an old one.
You know, there was, since you said that, this weekend when at the woodworking show, there was actually a guy there selling some old used planes, so to speak, some really, really nice ones. And I mean, I don't know anything about pricing, but some of the planes that I saw that he had actually, what I felt was reasonable for what the planes he had. Once again, I don't know anything much about them, so.
You know, I gotta say, doing this, I'm kind of on the cheap side because, you know, doing woodworking for a living, you're not rolling in dough. You know, most of us will admit that we do this because we love it. And so for that reason, I have to be really careful on where I spend my money. And hopefully, again, tonight that we'll go over some tips on what to look for when you're buying stuff, new or old, and money that's well spent. But I'm curious what the prices were on the planes that you saw. But my rule of thumb is I never spend more than $50 for a plane.
There was some there more than $50.
Oh, you know, I've gone to some of those shows and I've seen them go for, you know, like $1,500. Some of these new hand planes, and I imagine they're pretty sweet. But in the end, it's what? It's shaving some wood. And, you know, I've got a couple that I've got at a garage sale for $5 that do as nice of a job as one that I bought for $200. But for the most part, I buy my planes on eBay, and I typically don't spend more than $50 on it.
Cool. Well, show us what you got.
All right, I guess the first thing I'd like to ask is, I guess for our panel, because it's not going to be possible for me to ask the viewers, but if we could go down the panel here that we got, if they have a plane, and do they use it, and what problems they typically run into with their plane.
I guess I'll start off.
Yeah, go ahead, Russ.
I don't have one. I used to see them a lot when I was a kid, And I used to see the guys were working their tails off on those things. I didn't know what it was. It was shaving the wood. And as I've grown up, I said, well, I figure out what they're used for now. But I like that power. It's got to be something to it to make me want to use a hand plane. I know there's a reason for it, but I kind of like to see what it's for.
Tommy, you got anything to say?
Yeah, I have about 5 planes. Mostly are the Stanley Defiance that I've been restoring that I got off eBay that were pretty cheap, and I've barely used them at all. I only have 2 of them restored. The other ones still need to be restored, so I haven't used them too often yet.
You have a Defiance plane?
Yeah, there's 3 of them that are the Stanley Defiance.
Yeah.
The number 8 and a number 4, I believe, and I'm not sure what the other one is.
Do you know the story behind that?
No, I don't.
Oh, actually, it's pretty cool. I mean, I won't bore you guys with these stupid little history lessons, but you've heard of Bailey, right? The Stanley Bailey plane. You see that name?
Yeah.
Leonard Bailey, he actually left the company Stanley in, at any rate, he left in the late 1800s, and he went off and started his own hand plane, which was Defiance and also Victor. He was into a lawsuit with another engineer at Stanley, which was Trout, was the name of the engineer. At any rate, because of the blow-up, he left and he started those hand planes on his own. And eventually, after Bailey died, that's when Stanley started putting his name on the hand plane. It was after he died, which is kind of odd. But his line was bought back again by Stanley. But if you have one during that period that he was broke away from the Stanley Tool Company, that's worth some good money there. So definitely hang on to that one.
Cool. I'm trying to adjust. Oh, no, the reason there was a mid silence there for a second is I'm trying to adjust my mic. I was messing around the other day with another Hangout, and I had the gain set up way up high there. Some of them over in the chat section are saying I am getting we're getting an echo. So
it's like your microphone's too close to the speakers, Russ.
Right. Well, it was the gain was set up wide open. So, but it was set wide open. Now I'm turning it way down so that we don't get the feedback.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now,
but getting back to the planes, I've got a number 4 Craftsman that my dad had, and I just recently picked up a number 6 Stanley. And once I got them cleaned up and the rust off of them and flattened, and blade sharpened, I've had no problems with them. That number 6, I love that thing. I'd marry it if I could.
That's a great one. That's a great one. We'll actually go over that one tonight, but that's a great one to have. Anyone else?
Yeah, I've just got this little Stanley. I only use it to knock off corners and edges. So you can see it now.
That's about the same. That's about the same one that I got. Matter of fact, when you were on the last time you were on the show, I showed you the little plane that I had, and that's the only one that I have.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Block planes were the plane that a carpenter on the field would have in his apron. I mean, it used to be the thing that they carried on them in their tool belt was the block plane. It's funny because when I'm on job sites and I either pull out my block plane or my smoothing plane, some of the other trades guys call me Jebediah because I still use a lot of my hand tools. But they often come over and they're amazed at how precise you can get with them. And on top of it, it's quiet. You know, you don't have, especially if you're in a homeowner's house. I'm not pulling out the router and, you know, throwing up all these chips and sawdust everywhere. I can just plane away with it, put a drop cloth down, pick up the shavings, and gone. So I guess with that being said, that's the plane we'll start with, would be the block plane. This is an older, let me see, okay, so this is an older block plane that I have. This is about 1920 Stanley. It's a 9.5 is the model number. And this one kind of has all the little bells and whistles for me on it. It has the blade adjustment, goes in and out. It has a lateral adjustment so I can skew the blade from side to side. And on the front, it has this lever which will open and close the mouth of the plane.
So that little lever on the back that's how you skew the blade. I never knew that.
Yeah, yep. You can skew it just a little bit. So this is kind of like the Cadillac versus a Chevy. All right, they're both going to do the job. They're both going to get you there. But one just has, like the power windows. Well, where the Chevy, you got to roll them down still. Okay. The one that, if you guys are out in garage sales and stuff, the one that you can probably pick up for $1 or less is the Stanley 110. And this is a great little block plane, but the only thing you have is this nut, which will tighten and loosen the blade. There's no adjustment, so if you want to make the blade a little deeper, you're just going to loosen it and tap it and pull it out, and vice versa. But I use this plane a lot. I have this plane set a little bit heavier to take deeper shavings off. So between the two, I use these every day. And even though this one has all the adjustments, typically what happens is you get it like right in a sweet spot, where it's just making the size of the shaving that you want, and then you don't change it. So this one I use for fine work, and this one is set a little bit deeper to take them off. So let me go through the planes on what I think would be essential to have in your shop, and then we'll talk about what to look for when you buy them, and then how to tune them up, and then of course how to make them work for you. Okay? And of course, any of you guys on the panel, as I'm going, feel free to ask questions, stop me, or say, that's not making sense, say it again. And of course, any of your viewers, Russ, if they're typing in a question, stop me at any time, okay?
Sure,
so,
yeah. Let me just tell everybody over there, if you have a question, I am watching, I think, David, are you watching over there for me also? Or
Talking to me?
Not David, David.
Okay, yeah, I can't see the chat.
Yeah, Dave, well, usually Dave watches it for me. Dave, if you can watch the chat also, and I'll watch over there. So if y'all have questions over there, be sure to ask them, and we'll try to get them to chat.
There was one person which Chad may be going to get to it. He was asking what would be the best plane for somebody with no experience to start with.
Okay. There's probably that block plane. The reason I say the block plane is, again, that was one that carpenters typically carried on them on job sites, okay? And they're great for squaring up a board. They're good for working end grain. So you can work end grain with the plane. They're great for chamfering corners. It's an all-around good little plane to have. I mean, if that's the only plane you got and the first one you're starting with, it's one that I'm sure you'll get very comfortable with and then want to move up to another one. So the next plane in line after a block plane that I would suggest for your collection would be a smoothing plane. Now, Donald, I think you said you had a Craftsman number 4. This is the equivalent. This is a Stanley number 4. The smoothing plane is probably the one that you'll use second after the block. And the reason for that is if you have some rough spots on your board or some gouges maybe left behind from when you were doing some work, this plane will clean it up good. it's one that's widely used, and you can get these anywhere from $10, no more than, again, $50. But there's different models and different planes that have better steel, better design, and again we'll go over that in a little bit. But this is the next one in line that you would use. This is kind of like the finish plane, if you would. All right. So some furniture makers will actually finish a job with the smoothing plane and then a card scraper and done. Some of them won't even use sandpaper. Okay. That's how smooth this can get it. Really fine.
Hey, Chad.
Yeah.
On my number 4, one of the problems I have is kind of starting. Whenever I trying to smooth the panel, whenever I go to start, it sort of just digs in a little bit, and so like the first inch of the board I've got, is that a technique issue or a sharpness issue or something else?
Okay. Since you brought that up, let's real quick, let's talk about tuning up a plane. The first thing you want to do when you get your plane is you want to make sure that the bed is flat. Okay? Now, I know engineers out there are going to tell you this baby's got to be perfectly flat from the top to the bottom. And, I'm not going to argue with them. They're right. But I don't have all day to flatten that. So what I really need is... You're worried about 3 points of contact on the bottom of the blade to be the same. What we call the toe, which is right up here, in front of the mouth, and then back at the heel. So the best way to get this flat is get yourself a flat surface. And I wouldn't say my workbench, because I've got like glue drops and everything else all over it. Maybe your table saw where it's nice and flat. Put some sandpaper down, like maybe some 220, okay? And on the sandpaper, work it back and forth. And when you make some marks on the bottom of your plane with a permanent marker, you'll be able to see where it's hitting and where it's missing. That's the first thing you want to do, is get this bottom flat, all right? The next thing you want to do is, and I don't want to get too technical, but inside, when you take your blade and chip breaker off, you see this whole unit and these 2 screws, and that's called a frog. Okay? Take those 2 screws off, and what you want to make sure is that you have this sitting flat down there. Sometimes you can get rust and dirt and junk down underneath that. So you're going to want to make sure that's flat, and you put it back on. Now, the frog, the reason that those screws are there is this frog essentially is adjustable. And if you move the frog forward, it moves the blade closer to the front of the mouth, thereby making that clearance smaller. And some folks will tell you, well, you move the frog forward more to make that opening smaller for finer shavings. And then you can move the frog back to make the mouth essentially bigger for deeper shavings when you're doing a lot of rough work. I don't mess with none of that. What you want is, it's hard for you guys to see on here, but the frog should come right to the edge of the mouth. Okay? The reason for that is if the frog is too far forward, it's not touching on the bed of the plane, and you'll get what you call chatter with your blade. And so the blade will come and kind of skip and hit and skip and hit, and your board won't be smooth. All right? So once I get my frogs in, adjusted, tightened, I'm done with it. I don't mess with that anymore. You want to make sure that your blade is really sharp, and sharpening is key. And there's all kinds of sharpening methods out there. I won't even go into sharpening methods because I think it's kind of a personal thing. It's It's like dovetails. Some people do dovetails on the bandsaw, some do it on the table saw, the router, by hand. Everybody's got their preferred method for sharpening a blade, but bottom line is you want your blades really, really sharp. And then when you put the chip breaker on, so the blade is the iron, the chip breaker is the piece that sandwiches on it, and it's kind of a little bit humped and round. Can you guys all see that? Hopefully. What that is doing essentially, as this is cutting into the wood and that shaving is coming up, it's pushing the shaving out of the way. It's making clearance for it. So the setting on that is, if you're doing very fine work, you want the chip breaker back about 1/32nd to 1/16th of an inch from the edge of the blade. If you're going to be doing a little bit more deeper work, you can have it set back a little bit farther. But a sharp blade is key. The last thing that you're probably running into is paying attention to the grain of the wood. Pushing the plane across the board, it's kind of like combing your hair in the morning. You wouldn't ever try combing backwards, right? Because you're just going against it. So when you're looking at your board, pay attention to the direction of the grain. It should be going up. So you want to make sure that your plane is going that same way. So when, as the shaving's coming in, it naturally wants to curl out. If it's going the other direction, it's naturally wanting to dig down deeper. Okay. Lastly is the pressure that you're applying when you're starting the hand plane. You want the pressure on the front as you start going forward. Then as I'm into it, I'm putting pressure equal. Now my hand is not only pushing in the back, but I'm pushing slightly down too. Once it gets to the end, then the back is taking over. And like, these are cool. They're like little scrolls, you know, that they used to write on and stuff. So, okay, did that help at all?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
yeah, you explained a lot right there.
Yeah, I'm throwing a lot out at.
I was just saying, I do sometimes comb my hair up backwards, but I'm trying to get some more back up here.
Get a little comb over, eh?
No, I'm just kind of hoping it pushes the follicles back.
Okay, real quick, I know this is kind of backing up or whatever, but
Yeah.
Sterling Davis, he asked, how do you know how far, and you somewhat answered it, but go ahead and go over it again. How do you know how far down the blade needs to go? He says his seems to tear out much, and he can't seem to figure it out. So,
okay, again, key things are how sharp the blade is and the direction of your wood. You know, the direction of the wood is key. I mean, I can't stress that enough. You'll have some wood that is naturally like figured wood, tiger maple. You know, some of that you're always going to get tear out, and so there's different ways of attacking that. That's a little bit more technical, but you can go with either a high-angled blade. You can see. By the way, this is a hand plane that Woodcraft offers. It's what they call a Hong Kong style. It's a push or pull hand plane. But you can see how high that steep blade angle is.
yeah.
It's like at a 65 or a 70 degrees up, where a standard blade is like around 35. Okay, this will do figured wood beautifully. I mean, this will give you very, very limited tear out that Sterling is probably running into. However, the downside is because it's up so high, it's more like a scraper. So in other words, you're going to have to sharpen this blade a lot more than you are one that's set lower. Okay? But, and then someone else is, I know someone else out there is going to say, well, you can go with what they call a bevel down plane. And you can see this blade is really low. I think it's like at 12 or 15 degrees. Okay? I don't know. There's pros and cons to it. There's controversy over it. Basically, in the end, some folks are going to tell you that the high angle does the same as the bevel down the low angle. But they both work great on reducing tear out. However, this is like a $200 hand plane. This is like $35. So, you know.
Okay, next question would be, why all the numbers on the planes, and what do they mean? In other words, you got a 3, a 4.
Yeah.
Great. What does that mean?
Great question. Great question. Stanley is kind of like the mother of all companies out there when it came to hand planes, and so a lot of other companies use their same numbering system, just like we heard that Craftsman had number 4. There's, I think, oh gosh, the names are slipping me, but Fulton is another one. Anyhow, the number represents to the length. So a Stanley number 1 and number 2 are, they're smaller, they're very small, they're very expensive, and a lot of counterfeits out there, so don't think if you find one you've hit the jackpot. But here's a number 3. This is a Stanley number 3, and this is a Miller's Falls number 4. Okay, they're very close in size. Both are considered smoothing planes, so this would be like one of your finishing planes that you would use. I personally like the number 3. It's lighter, it's smaller. When I work out on the job site, sometimes I'm either planing door jams, I'm working, over my head. It's a lighter plane. I like this one quite a bit. But the 4 is pretty standard. When you move up to like a 5 or a 6, this is a Stanley number 5. This is a little bit longer than the 4, but this is a different plane now. Essentially, this is a jack plane. And the jack plane is kind of like the jack of all planes. This was the plane that the carpenter had also with him. Besides his block plane, the jack plane was what he grabbed, because the jack plane could rough a board down, and it could get it pretty doggone close to being smooth and finished. This is the plane in between. And when I say in between, back in the day, before we had our table saws and our joiners and all that, when you had a board that was rough, you used a scrub plane. This is a German plane, but if you notice, can you see that the blade is really, really curved? Can you see that?
Yeah, it's almost a half round, so to speak.
Yeah. This does great on wood that is incredibly uneven. It takes off a lot of wood fast, but you're left with these little scalloped grooves in it. In fact, maybe I can show you here. Sorry for the delay, guys.
No, that's all right. No problem.
Well, of course, I can't find something.
Hey, it's
Now
live.
you look like me in my shop.
It's
Yeah,
probably the
anything,
last place you put
anything
it.
live, it's not going to work. You're going to have complications. Trust me.
I know. I can't. Gosh, I can't find it, and that's irritating to me. But
And you probably put it where you know where it was at.
I blame Dan.
you blame Dan.
Yeah.
So you can see how
He was in your
fast
shop
this
and
is
moved
keeping
things
it
around
off.
when you got there.
And in just a few strokes, can you see how much I took off from there?
Yeah, wow.
So the scrub plane is very fast. It removes a lot of waste really, really quick. But you probably can't tell from here, but I got all these tracks in it, all these scallop tracks. Okay.
Yeah, we can see them.
Okay. So from there, you would want to use the jack plane. Now, I'll send you a link in the end, Russ. But I did a blog on these different planes out there, and you're gonna hear terms like jack plane, foreplane. Then when you cross the pond, they got like the Halfland plane and the Longin plane. All these different crazy names. Basically, after doing some research on it, there's a timeline that was crossed there when carpenters and furniture makers were calling the same plane essentially the same thing. So for myself, the way I broke it down is any plane that's metal that's 14 inches to 18 inches long, that's a jack plane. The same thing, 14 to 18 inches long, that's wooden, it's a foreplane. All right? It's the same thing. It's the plane that the carpenter used right after the scrub plane. So, let's set this a little bit. I don't have it deep enough. Okay, so you can see I'm getting those scalloped ridges out. And it does it very fast. Now, one thing I wanted to show is, maybe if I take it out. You can see I have just a slight camber to that blade. There's just a slight curving to that. It's not as deep as the scrub plane, which was really round. This has just a little bit on it, and what that does is, again, that's allowing me to remove more waste, but also, too, if this was perfectly square, sometimes you get those corners that will leave lines in it, the track lines, because it's square, and your board isn't even. So just a slight camber to it. Now, I'll tell you this much. If you pick up a plane that's 14 to 18 inches long, and you go, oh, the blade, it's straight. Well, that's not a jack plane, because Chad said they're cambered. Now, most of them won't be. The guys in the field back in the day, they would put their own camber to them. So that's exactly what I did. So if you get one, you might want to consider doing that. And that, again, gets into a topic of sharpening, which, you know, might be another lesson in itself. But so far in your arsenal that you'll want a block plane, followed by a smoothing plane. Those are the two that you first want to get. if you're enjoying working with them, I would definitely suggest a scrub or a jack plane. But the order, let me get these right. I got a couple of them taken apart here. I want to make sure I get all the parts put back in the right order.
Not trying to interrupt you, but I noticed that one thing that the numbers do tell me is, yes, they might jump from a different name of a plane to another, but a number 4 is definitely smaller than a number 8 or whatever it is. So as the numbers go up, the planes do get bigger, and they also change their name.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're absolutely right. I guess that's the down and dirty version of it. The bigger the number, the bigger the plane.
But my point is you wouldn't have a 6-inch. You wouldn't have a plane that is, let's say, 12 inches long and call it a block plane. It's the block plane is like the number 4 or whatever because it's the short.
Well,
plane.
Not necessarily, because this block plane is a 9.5 on Stanley's numbers.
Okay.
So yeah, they did get kind of goofy, and Stanley's got numbers all over the place, But when it comes to essential, I guess, bench planes, which would be the jack planes, the smoothing planes, and then the joining planes, which we haven't got to yet. The numbers are going to range from like 1 to 9. Okay, so those are the ones you're typically going to deal with out there. And so the joining plane is the one I want to talk about next. A joining plane is anywhere from 18 inches on up.
Holy crap!
Yeah. So this one is over.
They made planes that big.
Yeah, this one's over 30 inches long. I just, you know what?
I saw Jesus using one like that.
I think those were big enough to be his shoes when he crossed the water.
I'll tell you what. I went to a tool swap meet, and this old timer had $5 on this thing, and I said, "What's wrong with it?" He said, "Nothing. The guy's in a wheelchair." He said, "I'm at the point where I can't use this anymore." He goes, "I'm not looking to make any money off it. I just want to go in the right hands." And man, he got the right guy for that, because I love this thing. But a joiner plane, you're also going to hear the term a trying plane. All right. Again, it's the same thing. What's this used for? Well, if we had a really long board, if you had 2 really long boards and you want to mate them together to get them perfect, you would use this plane on it. Again, I got the short board. It wouldn't be necessary. I could probably almost do this with the block plane, But this would flatten both boards so that they go together. If you have a long board that you're trying to flatten, again, you would use this plane because it'll flatten it down straight for you. It's like using a level. Think of it like a level. If you have a really large porch, you're not going to use your little torpedo level on it, right? You're probably going to go for a 6-foot level. So essentially, it's doing the same thing. Trying plane, though, is when they refer to you're working on the face of the board because you're trying to get it flat. If you're using it when you're putting 2 boards together, it's a joiner. So, again...
But that makes sense because you're wanting to span a longer distance on the edge of the boards so that they do become flat, in other words, so they can go together. Whereas if you're using a small 4 or 6-inch plane, it would be more of a, in my analogy of it, it'd be more wavy, so to speak, because of the small plane.
That's exactly it.
The smaller planes are going to ride the grooves. The bigger planes are going to.
Yeah.
So when it comes to when it comes to using all these planes, now that you bought them, what's the order that you use them in? Because everyone thinks, oh, well, maybe I should work from small to large. No, it's a combination thereof. If this board was green, where we just split it off of the log or whatever, you would start with your scrub plane. From your scrub plane, I'm going to go to my jack plane. From the jack plane, I'm going to go to the joiner plane. Then, after I know it's flat, I just want to make it smooth, the smoothing plane.
Wow. I never knew, had any idea that there were so many. My mind's going 100 miles a minute. I never knew there was that many planes and that much of a difference.
Chad, you need to do a video doing what you just did to the bone song, the ankle bones connected to.
But essentially, again, we're talking about, this is all pre-electricity, right? I mean, they didn't have our table saws like we got today, and our planers that we run through. So, I mean, for the most part, I would say you guys would be good with a nice block plane and a good smoothing plane. Those are the ones that I think you'll pick up and you'll find that you use a lot. I'll tell you, I'll grab those faster than I'll grab my sander. Sander is loud, it's dusty, I can't stand it. I can fix most of my problems with those right there. Especially when it comes to coming right off of the table saw. The first thing I do when I come off the table saw is I come to this vise and I use the block plane and I remove my table saw marks on the edges of the board. It's the first thing I do. So, when it comes to buying a plane, if you're looking at now purchasing something, you heard me talk that oh, by the way, before I go on to that, does anyone have any questions? Is that?
Yeah, Chad, I'm kind of curious. One of those planes, I think it was the number 4, you had a corrugated sole on it. What was the advantage of the corrugated sole?
Yeah, you're going to see those out there. Right, which...
That's what my number 6 is, corrugated sole.
Yep. So you'll see these out there. People say they're grooved or ribbed. Yeah, the word is corrugated. In fact, this one here, Stanley marks it number 5 with a C for corrugated. It's just a gimmick. The idea was that they're going to reduce friction by putting these grooves in it. So you have less contact dragging across the board as you're working,
Okay.
So, yeah, it's just a gimmick, which is kind of funny because when it comes to hand planes, there's guys out there that say you want the heaviest hand plane you can because it's putting all the pressure down on the board for you, making a good cut. Well, I'm not going to argue with that. That's true. It does. It also really wears you out too when you're planing a board because you got to keep picking that heavy guy back up. When you're planing, you want to make sure that your bench is a little bit lower, okay? So that there's different benches. This bench is actually a little bit high. This bench for planing should be at my arm's length, a little bit lower. So I have all my body resting down on it and going forward. That's where the weight's coming in. But this bench is a little bit higher because most of the time I'm working at this level. It's a comfortable height for me. So I'm not going to argue with folks that say that they like a very, very heavy plane. My point is try using it for longer than 5 minutes. I bet you won't.
Oh, by the way, John Schaffner gets an A tonight because he knew what corrugated on the bottom of that plane meant. So
I think.
Anyone else? Any other question?
I have a Stanley 4C, which has the corrugated sole, but I have no idea why a person would do this, but they took and they shortened the heel end of it. They took like probably an inch or an inch and a half off the heel end.
Yeah, that I don't know either. Unless they were trying to fit it in a specific box or something, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But you brought up a point. The Stanley is probably the one you guys are going to go out and buy the most, whether it's new or used. They've been around since the mid 1800s. They used to be Stanley rule and level. Then they got into doing hand planes and braces and bits, became Stanley Works. And then in 1934, I think it is, they became Stanley Tools. So you're going to hear or you're going to see things out there. It's going to say the Stanley Sweetheart. It's going to have SW and a little heart around it. And they're going to say, like, this is extra special, and they're going to ask for a lot more money for it. They simply changed the name. In 1920, they went from Stanley Rule and Level to Stanley Works, SW. Why is it called Sweetheart? Why did they put the heart around it? Well, I believe the president of Stanley Company at the time, his name, I think it was William Hart, H-A-R-T. You know, so just to be cute, when they became Stanley Works, he put the heart around it, and it became known as the Sweetheart series. But the good thing is if you buy anything that's got a Stanley Sweetheart on it, it's like between 1920 and 1934. It's a good plane. Some of the features to look for is, you'll notice on this is the lever cap, okay, on the Stanleys, and see how the hole here kind of looks like a kidney bean?
Yeah.
That is going to be from 1934 up to current. That was a little gimmick that they came up with because they thought it's going to lock the screw in better and hold it down. All right? If you get one, oh, that's not one. If you get one that's just the keyhole, see, it's not kidney, it's a regular keyhole. That's like 1930 and before, okay? And so it's going to be just a little bit better made, a little bit better iron and steel in it. They can ask for a little bit more money for it, and you'll actually be happier with the plane. I'm happier with this one than the other one. If you get one that's a Stanley, the keyhole, but notice the name isn't there now. That's before 1920. All right. So again, the older, in my opinion, just a little bit nicer material. The weight, the handles, the irons. It's just going to make it a little bit better plane for you. Doesn't mean you have to spend more for it, because most of the folks out there don't know what they got. But you do have to be careful. Some of these guys will hack and put them together. But for the most part, I've had really good success on eBay with it. If you're looking at buying a wooden plane, the wooden planes are nice. They're not as adjustable as, or they're not as quickly adjustable as the metal ones are. But some things you want to look for when you're buying a wooden plane is the bottom, first of all. You don't want this really worn out. You don't want a huge hole and being hogged out, because as this wooden body gets worn over the years, this opening gets wider and wider. Okay? Doesn't mean that the plane is junk. It's just one that, well, it's probably been used really well. What you do want to look for is, you want to look for cracks in the corners of the mouth. This is where the plane can become worthless, is when you have cracks coming off the side. There's a lot of pressure on this when you put the blade and the wedge in there. Same with on top. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but on top, right in this area, which is where when the blade and the wedge go in there, look where the two meet. Again, you don't want any cracks splitting off to the end, because you're going to apply pressure to tighten this up. If you got a crack there, it's just going to expand and the blade will come loose on you. Other than that, the rest of the wooden plane, it can be fixed. You know, you can easily flatten the bottom. The handle's not a big deal if it's gone or broken. And like I said, you can get these things dirt cheap. Dirt cheap.
Sean, Sean Mason has, do you have any bad planing habits that we should be aware of? I mean, you know, is there some things that you say right off the bat, this is what you don't want to do?
Sure, sure. One of my bad habits is when I'm planing, I don't know if it's where I'm standing or just how I'm gripping, but I tend to, when I go across it, oh, I took this apart, now my setting's way off, you can see this. When I'm going across, I typically tend to lean towards one side, so when it's done, I'm not square anymore.
Ah.
I put too much pressure on the one side. So, you know, take a couple passes. You wanna make sure that you got a nice full shaving coming out. And after 2 or 3 passes, I'll either stop and, you know, throw a square on it and check it, or, you know, just eyeball down and look at it. Don't get carried away, and then you take it out, you know, and you got a trapezoid now instead of a square. So,
JP Woodwork says, what's the difference between the Stanley planes that were made in the USA and the ones that were made in the UK?
I don't really know on that. I know there's some different planes and materials that were used during the different years, especially like when World War II came out. A lot of the brass was missing off of different planes. Some planes became aluminum, but I'm not real familiar with the ones that are in the UK. Sorry.
That's all right. You can't be expected to know everything.
But you know what? I'm curious about it. So if he wants to email me, I'll do some research and get back to him.
Okay. You heard that, JP. If you want to email him about that question, he'll do some research. That's pretty well all the questions I see over there. Wow. You know, when you first started, we were going to do this hand plane thing. I actually thought, oh, man, this might be kind of a short time tonight. I mean, it's my ignorance, trust me. I had no idea. Number one, there were that many planes. Some of the planes were that big. I mean, it's been enlightened. And the sad thing about it is my father and my grandfather were carpenters, and they were back before the time that there was power. So, but when I grew up, I mean, they had planes, but I don't remember them using them like that all the time.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm really fascinated about is, you know, for the most part, they're fairly simple. It's a sharp piece of metal put in a wooden body, and it can do some really precise work. I do this class through Woodcraft, and they call it Back to Basics. And we do projects with just hand tools. And now I realize that you know, this is a hobby, this is a craft that can take some money. And I mean, if you come from a background like myself or a neighborhood like I live in, there isn't a whole lot of money floating around. But people want to learn how to do this. So I've tailored these classes to teach how to make woodworking projects with minimal tools. And well, aside from the carving on this, never mind the carving, but this box is made with all hand tools. We do a tongue and groove here. We make a rabbet joint on the side, and we do a raised panel. And we do the whole thing with just 3 hand planes and a saw. The next class we do, we go from there and we build a little cabinet. We add a couple more joints to it. We learn how to do a dado joint. We add another plane, which is a router plane, not an electric router, a router hand plane. And now we're making cabinets with doors and drawers on it. From there, we do a tool chest. So there are not a lot of tools that you need to make nice pieces of furniture or woodworking. And so that's what I'm really trying to strive, is the hand tool thing, and to teach these basics with the hand tools.
That's awesome. And I find myself, I use mostly power tools, but I find myself sometimes thinking that it might be, especially like you said earlier, rather than pulling out your sander to take something off that's really where it only requires just a small amount. I think to myself sometimes that would be a lot easier than just pulling out the sander, just taking one of those smoothing planes, just run it across a few strokes, and boom, you have it.
Yeah, what I typically like to tell folks is when you use hand tools, you can usually correct your mistake in the process. If you use a power tool, well, you don't notice your mistake till after the process, and then it's too late. So there's pros and cons to everything, without a doubt. I mean, I make my living using power tools. I'm not going to lie about that. I couldn't get the furniture made and out of here each day if I was doing it all by hand. But when it comes to actually the joy and the love of doing woodworking, man, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing a really nice thin wood shaving, come curling up out of there, and then they have the floor littered with that. I don't have a mask, I don't have safety glasses and hearing protection on. I mean, it's just a joy.
When I got that number 6 set up and I made the first couple of passes and got it set right, and I got that nice solid curl, and it was just a little tiny curl when it was done, I about wet myself.
I know folks are out there, they're really into, like, using micrometers and measuring their shavings and all this. And I had a wooden hand plane that I bought for $4 at a garage sale, and it did just as good as the $200 one. I mean, when you get them set up and they're sharp and you're going the right way with them, man, that old stuff, you just can't beat it. Now, granted, the $200 one, I can make the adjustments really fast, and it's good. But if you're on a fixed income or budget, you can't go wrong with some of this old stuff.
Cool. I've learned a tremendous amount tonight. I mean, it's like, wow.
Chet, there was one more thing I wanted to ask you. I didn't hear you cover it. When you're sharpening your blades, do you chamfer the corners of it a little, or kind of round them a little bit to keep them from digging into the wood?
On my jack planes, yes. The longer planes, yes, I do. On the smoothing planes, my finish ones, no, I don't. I leave them square. The reason for that is, with my smoothing plane, I'm taking as thin of a piece as I can here. I'm not doing a lot of work with this guy. He's just doing the very end, and so it's sharp. And when I'm taking off there, I'm pretty much at this point going with the grain of the wood. If you skew it, now this gets into geometry. When you skew your plane, you are actually changing the cutting angle of it. You're no longer cutting at this 35 degrees that it's set at. And there's a whole other mathematical formula that goes into it, but that's sometimes why it's easier to work when you skew the plane versus going with it the same direction. So when I get to my smoothing plane, I'm going the same direction with it. And if I'm skewing it, I'm not going to leave those marks.
Okay. Just curious. Thank you.
Sure, sure.
I got a quick question too, Chad.
Yeah.
I picked this thing up at flea market, about $10.
Yes.
And I mean, I used it for the first time earlier this afternoon, and believe it or not, it actually takes pretty nice shavings. But I had no really idea what the hell to use it for.
Oh, that is a great plane. Is that a Stanley? Stanley 78?
I don't think so. All it says on here is made in USA. It has no other markings at all on there.
Okay. It could be it could be another company that made them. Fulton, Craftsman, Dunlap, all made the same plane.
Yep.
It's a rabbit plane. A rabbit plane essentially is, you can see on this one where the blade comes to the end, you can see the body, right? There's still the body of the bed there. On the rabbit plane, the blade goes all the way to the edge. There's no body there. These planes, and in fact, this is one of the planes that I recommend when I teach my classes, to make this raised panel lid. I don't know how well you guys can see this lid. On the side, it's got like a tongue. So I'm going to use it to make that. To make the actual raised panel part, it's this blade again. This plane. So this plane I can use to make my raised panel doors, drawer fronts, these lids, anything that requires a rabbet joint, this plane will do. And I noticed yours is nice because I'm missing mine. You have a fence on the side there, like a rod and a little fence.
Yep.
Yeah. So that is for if I wanted to set this in, say like 3/4 of an inch, and I wanted to plane this down. Well, you got that fence, so it would ride against. I need a third arm. What I need. That fence would ride against the edge of the board, and it would make sure it would go straight. Okay. Now I don't have that on mine, so what I wind up doing is I score a line, and I start with this angled up, and then as I'm planing, I just keep lowering it down. Now I made a shoulder there from where I scored. I made that shoulder, and now I can keep going with it. You'll also notice too on yours that on the side you'll see a little screw, and it's got like little thumbs on it. Okay? If you turn one of those thumbs so it's pointing down, it's what they call a knicker.
Right.
Yes. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yep. That's for if you're going across the grain. I was going with the grain. If I'm going across it, what that is, it's a little knicker. It scores the wood fibers just ahead of the blade, so it leaves a little bit cleaner cut when you're going across.
Wow.
All in all, that's a great plane. You're gonna.
All right. The other question is, there's a like almost like a bullnose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Worthless.
Worthless.
Mine has the same thing, and it was so that you were supposed to move your blade up here for a bullnose. So that's if you're how can I say it? Let's say you're making a rabbit and it's not quite coming to the end of the board. It's got to stop shy. Well, you still have this little 1/4 inch from the front of the plane that's in the way. So it's truly worthless. You'll see some guys out there, they'll actually break the front of this off so it becomes what they call a chisel plane, so they can get right up in the corner. So don't buy this thinking that you're getting a 2-for-1. It's just utter nonsense. Just buy it for the fact that it's a great rabbit plane.
Well, couldn't you just go up and stop just shy of where you want to stop and finish it up with a chisel anyway?
Yeah, well, that's the idea. So, like, by putting the blade up to this front here, it gets you closer, and then you'd finish up with the chisel.
Okay.
That's why I said some guys back in the day just used to break this off so they could get it right up to there.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anyone
Chad,
else?
man.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got
they got-
something. Since you're so full of knowledge and history, I got
I'm full of something
plane
else, too.
I got a plane off of eBay, and I tried to do some research, couldn't find out any information on it, but it's trustworthy. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I haven't heard of them, but let me see the rest of it. Could you show me the rest of the plane? And can you turn it so I can see the back, like to the yeah, there you go. Is there a screw below the adjusting knob that you see? Is there like just
No,
below
it's
it?
just the adjusting knob.
Is there a screw below it? No, there's not. Okay.
No.
Okay. Here's what that probably is. There were companies out there, Stanley did this for a while. Companies like Firestone, the tire company, Firestone made some hand planes, and True Value made some hand planes. No, it was the company just did a little promo thing with another company such as Stanley and had their names stamped on them. What I was asking you to look at there. Gosh, I wish I could get a camera in here better, but
I can see. We can see.
Can you see that screw?
Yeah.
Yeah. We
Okay.
can see it.
That screw, if you got a hand plane that's got that screw below it, it's not a big deal, but it's that adjusts the frog that we were talking about earlier in the very beginning.
Right.
You would use that to move the frog forward or backwards depending on the opening you wanted on the mouth. Now, I never move mine, but that's a sign of a better built hand plane. I mean, this was a hand plane that was made for a furniture maker versus the weekend, guy who's fixing his house type hand plane. If it doesn't have that screw, it's just a slightly modeled down. Okay, doesn't mean it's not a good plane. I mean, a lot of these old planes, you can really clean up and sharpen them, and they'll work wonders for you. But in terms of value, that's one of the things you want to look for. All right. So I think the trustworthy plane that you got there, I think it was just I shouldn't say a gimmick, but it was just a lower grade plane that was probably made back in the day.
Cool.
Very nice. You are, my man. You're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to these planes. I mean, I understand that everybody's got their own little niche of things they particularly like. I know a lot more about scroll saws than I do anything else, but man, you know a lot about the planes. I'll give you that.
The old hand tools. One of the things I'm researching here lately is the old braces. I gotta show you one here, but
I know enough about everything to be dangerous. Just saying.
I just picked this guy up recently, and I think the fellow who sold it to me didn't quite know what he had. It's a Frey and Pig brace and bit. They only made this brace for 6 years, and it's from 1859 to 1865. So it's a pretty neat old brace. And what I love about these old tools is you think about it, back in the day, I mean, we'd pick up our cordless DeWalt drill down, that's what we use. This is what they were using. This is before electricity. I think the light bulb was 1874 or something like that. This is well before. This is like Civil War type stuff.
But you ain't got to worry about charging batteries.
Yeah.
No, not at all. But for me, I feel like I'm carrying on the craftsman who was before me, who had that tool before me. I now have it in my hands, and I'm keeping him and his work alive by using this stuff. And
You know
so,
what tells me about that brace that you just picked up? What tells me that it's really old is a lot of your newer braces had the roller on the handle for so as you went around it would
yeah,
rotate around. That doesn't even have that. That's just a plain piece of steel.
yeah, yeah. And in fact, look, I mean, there's a lot of the ones you always see have the ratcheting chuck on it. This
Right.
doesn't. And this is called the clamshell, or it's a Spoford, which was the engineer that designed this. And you just put the bit in there and crank it down, and you're good to go. It's a very nice brace, and a lot of chair makers, like Windsor chair makers, desire this brace. So
I don't have my father's brace anymore, but I think my brother's got it. But I have a ton of his old bits that were used for the brace, and how you can tell is the ends of them.
that's it. That's it. That's exactly, and that fits right in there. I got one sitting on the bench here.
Yeah, I got the ratcheting brace like he was talking about.
Yeah, I've got probably, and you know, as old as this thing is, it's still pretty doggone sharp. I played around with it a while back, but I've got probably about 15 or 20 of these different various sizes of bits for that brace that was my father's.
Yeah, and depending on the type of bit, the type of spiral, the type of spur that's on it, some of those can be quite desirable by collectors.
Yep.
So, I mean, something as simple as these, you know, there are people out there that want them. This is one that I have. It's a German one. I haven't quite figured out the year on it. I got a friend in Germany who's going to try and help me with it. But this is the same thing. It just goes in. It doesn't hold it as tight as the other one does, but nonetheless, it did the job back then. So. Yeah, I love these old tools.
Yeah. I think one of my favorites is the Yankee screwdriver.
Yeah. I got that too, man. There's
Yeah, those Yankee screwdrivers were pretty doggone cool.
Yeah, there's different numbers. You'll notice some will have a spring to them. Yeah. Some will have the spring that jets out on it.
Right.
And some models didn't.
Yep.
The reason for that is they thought when you let this come out, you can damage your work that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones without the spring, you know, and they work just fine without it. I mean, especially if you're working down, when they're lubed up, they typically fall out on their own. You know, so yeah, they're a nice little thing. The problem is, though, I have to make my bits with the Phillips because they didn't offer them with the Phillips screw head on it.
Yeah.
And man, without a Phillips, these things suck. I mean, you're just like gouging up your wood all over. So yeah,
I've got one that's
invented the straight or the slotted screw and the slotted screwdriver. They weren't very bright.
well, you know what? It was the Canadians that made the Phillips head. The Canadians first came up with the Phillips head because the American-made, you know, straight slotted one was so crappy.
Yeah.
And then the Americans came back with the square drive screw. But no, the Canadians got it right with the Phillips, man. We love them for that. So
Yeah.
I got a newer one of the Yankee screwdrivers, and it's got the drill bits with it and everything. I love that thing.
oh, up in the handle.
Yeah.
Is it the little push drill?
Yeah.
Yeah, this
You
guy.
use it. I've got one like you, a couple of the ones like you had earlier, and then I've got that one.
Okay.
I love that thing.
I like this one too, man. I use this quite a bit also. Yeah, just for the starting holes here and there. I don't have to go all the way through. You know, I just like to get it started to put the screw in.
If you need to put a hole someplace that's kind of tight and you can't get your drill up in there.
Yeah, all these old tools I still find a use for. So.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I mean, like I said, I wished I had some of my father's older tools to this day that unfortunately I don't have them. They're not around.
I
I
gotta
know.
say, one of the things that I find really sad is, and let me show you, since we were talking hand planes. Let's see. They're called. Here we go. Now look at these hand planes. These are rather unique. I haven't quite figured out how to use them correctly, but these are what they call coach makers planes or carriage makers planes. They were hand planes used on the stagecoaches back in the day. And you had a set of planes that did for the body, and then you had a set of planes for the chassis. So one was the coach makers, one was the carriage makers. The problem was, though, that when the railroads came about, well, we didn't need stagecoaches anymore. So pretty much the industry dried up overnight, so these guys just threw these things away. And we've lost now in history what these planes actually do, where they went. I've been researching for years on these, and I found a company out there that actually makes modern-day stagecoaches, just like they did back then. Absolutely beautiful. I'll send you the link. It's gorgeous. So I reached out to them and talked with their head carpenter on these, and even he doesn't know what they were for because they're using power tools today, So I think for what we do as woodworkers, it's important we keep sharing all this knowledge that we are, and it's important that I think we learn the history of this and share that as well as the new stuff. I know CNCs are the big rage, but I don't think we should forget where we came from, because one day, someone's going to come across our tools and, be scratching their head wondering what were they for,
Right.
Hey, we need to know how to use the power tool, the hand tools, because in a few years the zombies gonna come along, and we ain't gonna have no power. Who's gonna build the walls?
I got a neighbor. It's kind of funny. I got a neighbor. He's a little out there, but he believes in this sun EMT thing. That's just gonna send this big electrical pulse, and, we're gonna be thrown back to the Stone Age.
It's from the chemtrails.
Well, he says to me, he's like, are you worried about that? And I said, no, man, that'd be great. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, I'm the only guy in the neighborhood who'll be an instant success. I mean, I'm all set. Bring it on, EMT, baby. So.
Yeah.
If you can still build something, they're gonna look after you.
Back to your Yankee screwdriver. Now, didn't they make a set of small drill bits for those that you could actually use them to drill holes, like for the hinges, for the screws for the hinges and stuff like that?
Yeah. On the push drill. This is called the push drill, and so.
Well, the reason I say that is because I remember my father using what I would consider a Yankee screwdriver to, like when he was going to put the hinges on, he would actually set the hinge into place, mark it, and then use that to drill pilot holes to put the screws in. Yeah,
it comes with different size, and they're not drill bits like you would think. They're not spiraled like a drill bit. They're just straight with edges on it. But yeah, in this particular one, I think I have 3 or 4, but I think it held. Oh, it looks like it held about 10. Back in the day.
Yep, I remember him using that.
Yeah, they're nice. That's what I mean. I do like to use it for stuff like that, just to get things started. Because you get your cordless drill, and you're compensating for the weight of the thing. In fact, I'm actually writing a blog about right now using the brace and bits and using the cordless drills in the shop, and why I like using both. But yeah, you get a cordless drill and you got the weight on it. Something like this, you're right over it, you're straight. I just make a couple of turns, get it started, and I can put the screw in.
Yeah, I think the one my father had, he's got like, I think there's like about 8 bits in it that I use. I stick with one because I use it for putting into hinges, and I never change the thing.
With a cordless drill, if you ever get off a little bit, it's too late.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that comes back to what I said about power tools. You know,
it's too late.
By the time you recognize your mistake, it's too late. So.
Yep. That's for sure. Well, guys, we went over, but that's fine because we had 32, 34 people watching. We got 24, so I mean we're doing great. Everybody's still watching out there, and I appreciate that. So,
that's great.
Shane just come in and said, "What did I miss?" And Tommy just told him everything.
Oh, we're just starting, Shane. We're just starting.
Yeah, you stay here, Shane, and watch, and we'll all see you in a little while.
You missed the secrets of the universe.
Yeah.
But if anyone has a question on a tool, or if they're trying to use their hand plane out there and they're having some problems or something, if they want to email me, by all means, go ahead, reach out to me, and I'll do whatever I can to help you guys. So.
That's fantastic. Hey, Chad, I got to tell you, a wealth of knowledge. I learned a vast amount of knowledge about planes that I had no clue and no idea about. Thank you very much.
Oh, glad to do it. Glad to be on your show. Thanks, Russ.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. You enlightened me. Now I'm going to go look on eBay and see if I can find some planes for $5.
Yeah.
That's where I've got all mine.
You know, and never spend more than $50. And I say $50 because I'm at the point now where I'm trying to buy stuff for my collection. You know, so. You guys starting off, there's no reason why you should have to spend more than $20, $25 on a good hand plane.
I think the closest I've gotten to $50 was like $45, and that was for this big old.
Holy crap!
Oh yeah, that's a nice joiner. What was that? Number 9 or?
It's number 8.
Number 8. Okay. Yeah. Can I see the cap lever on it? Is that Stanley there?
No, it's Winchester.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. And does it have the screw underneath in the back there?
No.
Okay. Well, it's still gonna do just great for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a big boy.
One or two that has the screws.
I did a couple of blogs last year or so, Russ, on some hand planes, block planes, essential hand planes for your shop. I can forward that to you. You know, if you want to share those with any of the viewers tonight, just to get a review what we talked about. So.
Yeah, send it to me and I'll make sure I'll get it out there.
Sounds like I need to spend a little bit more time on your blog.
Yeah.
My blog is very different from my videos. You know, I on the blog it's pretty serious. I try to put a little bit of history into the subject matter. As well as kind of like my own personal mindset on doing this type of work. I think it's a very humbling, calming craft to be in, and I take it quite serious, even though my video show I act, kind of carefree. But the blog is very, very different from the videos.
Hey, Donald, with blogs you have to read. It's not like YouTube.
Hey. As long as I ain't got to do a whole lot of math, I'm good.
I do put pictures in it, though, if that helps. So.
Oh, you can look at the pictures.
I think, Chris, did you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, let's call it a night. Thank you all, everybody, for being over there on YouTube. I appreciate it. We had a good group over there, some nice questions. I appreciate all that. And thank you all for being on. Thank you again, Chad. A wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information, man.
It was great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, hey, I learned a ton of information tonight. And thank you, Chris, and thank you, Dave, David Gunn, Donald, John, Russ, Tommy. Y'all, God bless and good night. And just give me sawdust, lots of sawdust. All around me and everywhere. I like it flying all around my shop and even in my beard and hair. Good night and God bless.
Night, everybody.
Night.
Night.
I was going to say, hurry up and say your good nights real quick.